Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Could you share your alright then, I resigned story, part 2? Funny tale. My friend and I shared this same shift at Burger King, which ran from 11 to 5. Since I was only 16 and a half, my job as the drive-thru employee wasn't something I hated. I was close to giving up because I knew I could be happier. But my stress level was only increased by my a-hole of a manager. Every day, he would give us some sort of sit rep on how he owns this place, and you have to listen to show you how much of a D-head he was. Around 3 o'clock one day, a customer pulls up to the speaker and makes a lot of requests. 4 combos of fries and hamburgers, 2 with extra ketchup, and 1 without onions. As the customer approaches the window, my friend and a few colleagues place the order. She had darker skin and black hair, and she appeared to be in her 30s. After taking her meal and leaving, she came back a short while later. She claims to have received the wrong order on the speaker. I ask my friend, what do I do since I'm new to this job? I don't know, ask the manager, he says in response to the statement. Her order's wrong. When I entered his office, he called out, "What?" So, a customer in the drive-thru wants a refund because she ordered the wrong thing. How should I proceed? I stated. He got up from the chair. Oh, give me a moment. After waiting by the window for a few minutes, he finally showed up. The woman had lost her temper by now and was standing at the window. However, the problem is that my manager lost his cool the moment he saw her. "This is what we're dealing with? This?" With a gesture that suggests she has 3 heads. He says, "You again. One more. Do people of your kind never leave?" he stated, clearly making reference to her race. When the manager grabbed it and threw it in her car, my friend had corrected her order and was about to give it back. Although it makes sense that the woman was upset, she deserves praise for simply driving off after yelling a few expletives. Despite knowing what had happened, everyone remained silent. I'd already given up the next day, but my friend, for some reason, remained. He claimed that almost no one attended because they had all given up. Following numerous reports, the manager was promptly fired and Burger King has since hired someone else. I used to work at a very posh and busy salon with an A-grade jerk for a boss. Pushed coworkers away from one another, created drama all the time, asked you to do something only to say it was wrong, and expected everyone else to put in extra hours without getting paid for it. She would constantly make foolish decisions, such as scheduling the second apprentice's yearly leave during my sister's wedding weekend, even though I had given her notice of 10 months beforehand. Tried to tell me I had to go do work, but I told them I wouldn't be working because my sister was getting married. She responded by saying I should be grateful for the experience she's given me, that she has to miss many of her friends' parties, and that I should be grateful that I had food on my table. This came after 9 months of working 3 hours of unpaid overtime each day and only having 2 apprentices for every 6 booked hairdressers due to a severe staffing shortage. I literally lost half my body weight as a result of not having time to eat and running around. That wasn't even the last straw for me, because I work hard and can tolerate crazy behavior from bosses, hairdressers, always, but after a week or so, she overbooked herself as usual and came in demanding that I go blow dry her client even though I was in the middle of serving a customer and had another one waiting. In order to find out what I should do to keep everyone happy and who should come first, I go speak with the floor manager. She claims that since my client has been waiting the longest, she should go first. She then sets up the next one, providing food, magazines, and a heated towel. So I quickly blow dry mine and set up boss's customer. She calls me into her office after I've completed both of them and yells at me that I must prioritize her because she's the boss and pays my salary. I tell her that I discussed the matter with the manager, who gave me advice on what to do. She continues to scream until patrons can hear her. She yells, "Don't walk away from me," as I turn around. I carry on moving, called in on a day of stress leave, and showed up for resignation 2 days later. I told her I was happy to be leaving while maintaining a straight face despite her attempts to provoke me during the entire meeting. She was particularly concerned that I would reveal all her dark secrets, so she reminded me of the privacy agreements, declined to provide me with any type of reference that I could carry out my apprenticeship. She blacklisted me and called every salon in the area, so I had to give up hairdressing. I spent 3 years working toward my apprenticeship only to have it end that way. I'm happy that I was able to leave at the time I did because now I work at a job I love. Since my departure, she hasn't been able to manage an apprentice for longer than 2 months. Furthermore, the majority of the employees I worked with grew tired of her and left. The story's lesson: never work with a hairstylist. As a tile layer, I work. When I left a previous job, there were 15 people working there and I was the first guy hired. Because of this, my boss gave me complete trust to handle any kind of work that came up. The only issue with this is that he also knew that I could handle any issue that might come up. He became less and less interested in interviewing qualified candidates after a few years when the business really began to take off. When the job market booming, you had to seize the opportunity if you wanted to hire someone. Unfortunately, this meant that even though I did my best to produce the best work possible, the jobs would end up being sloppier and sloppier. The first interaction occurred when I requested a semester break, which is customary in this area between Christmas and New Year's. Although I had told him back in October, he persuaded me to go to work when the time came. Naturally, I declined because I had already taken the time off and my coworker had to fill in for me. Cue errors, which I got peed off about after the break and had to fix. We got into a fight and yelled obscenities at one another. I threatened to quit if this continued. After 2 months, I was fed up with constantly having to correct other people's errors, so I asked him to print the documents and left without arguing. I was aware that he was going to elevate me to manager, but I just told him to screw it. Not worth the effort. After a year in a rebound job, I launched my own business, which has been successful for 6 years. Hasn't turned around. However, his company filed for bankruptcy this year. Tell me a scary story about your HOA, COA, or neighbors, Part 2. Oh, I got a fun one. For the sake of cleanliness, I will, however, edit a few details. So, I knew the president of an HOA in Georgia for a long time. Despite several natural disasters occurring, he performed such an excellent job with planning during his 10 years in office that no one was required to pay any additional assessments. A whip-smart, business-savvy entrepreneur. Together with 3 other people who all wanted HOA exceptions, different front doors, different colors for their homes, higher fences, different flowers, etc., an illiterate satellite repairman, no kidding, persuaded him that they were gathering votes to maintain the association as it was. Despite knowing something was wrong, he canvassed. It turned out that the 4 of them had lied to the homeowners, telling them that signing the document would cement the current leadership when, in fact, it would establish new ones. Regretfully, they narrowly prevailed, and upon realizing the outcome, the electorate was informed that they would have to wait for the subsequent election to reverse it. The association went bankrupt in 3 months, and during that time it was discovered that every third party, lawn care, landscaping, etc., had been replaced. These third parties suspiciously belonged to the 4 friends, etc., and one of the 4 spouses even worked as the retainer lawyer. Within the first year, they had to request 3 special assessments because the development ran into problems. In addition, the development expanded from 0 Section 8 homes to 32 in a matter of years, adding to the community's already existing tensions and turning it into a transient rather than established neighborhood. The original good group of 4 moved out of the community as the Section 8 homes typically voted to maintain the status quo despite not knowing any better. Truly depressing. Although I'm not a homeowner, my mother is. When I was living at home in my early 20s, I was required to go to a meeting and cast a vote in favor of spending money to upgrade the roofing. My mother forewarned me about this guy in the HOA who hates the president and is allegedly an alcoholic who constantly sends vile emails to everyone in the group late at night, accusing the president of who knows what. It was obvious he was wasted at around 6 o'clock in the evening when he began shouting about how the fee should cover any roofing. The president responds by hurling insults at the person. The inebriated man approaches the president and begins to shove him. The HOA president files a restraining order and phones the police. It resembled a Springer episode. For some reason, our HOA is managed by an outside company, and they frequently ignore issues until complaints are made by everyone. Our neighborhood, which consists of roughly 50 homes, is gated. The gate broke earlier. It took them a year to fix it, and during that time, they left the fix in place for 6 months without providing any explanation. When individuals began hanging ironic messages on the gate, that's when they gave the order to finish the work. Their newly ordered gate was inoperable. So, fixing that took several more months. After 5 years, half of the gate broke off. Kept falling and obstructing traffic, but it wasn't fixed for a week. The company just rehung the gate after fixing it, leaving it ajar forever. Despite complaints, they haven't called to have that fixed in the past 2 months. This is mainly because, prior to the gate's malfunction, no one had been robbed. However, as of late, at least 2 or 3 houses have been hit. There's a small community board here as well. Fortunately, the only family who genuinely gave a D about appearances relocated. They sent anonymous, passive-aggressive notes to any family they believed had broken their code of appearance using this privilege. Naturally, everyone knew it was them because nobody else on the block gave a D about mailbox shapes or house colors. Less than 2 weeks before the resentful family moved away and would not have to see the house anyway, they even forced their very good family friends to refrain from painting their house green by sending anonymous notes and making direct calls to the painting company. It's not an HOA where I grew up or where my parents currently reside, but there are newcomers who are also new parents who are insane enough to be HOA members. There are no sidewalks in my old neighborhood. People walk on the side. These parents have determined that it's safest for their children to walk in the middle of the road. The standard speed limit is 40 kilometers per hour, or 25 miles per hour, but these parents believe that anything faster than 10 kilometers per hour, 6 miles per hour, is simply too fast. They don't go 40 kilometers per hour because everyone knows there are children playing. However, that didn't stop them from reminding people to slow down by erecting a human blockade. However, that didn't sit well with someone, so they called the police. From then on, they would just stare while yelling at passing cars to slow down. The main crazy guy hollered at me for speeding one day and waved me down when I saw him and his kids on the street and I was driving at 20 kilometers an hour, 12 miles per hour, in a really bad mood. He stopped bothering people, we had a brief standoff, and I'm sure his family and a few others moved out of the area. Bought a corner lot home that had a common area property right next to it. The second proprietor. In addition to running my system for the common areas, the builder installed a sprinkler system on my entire property by mistake. The previous owner could maintain uniformity, so he watered, fertilized, and mowed it. I knew because I had the survey and he had told me everything. It wasn't a big spot, so who cares? I figured I'd do the same. The land would be maintained by the HOA according to the bylaws. I was so busy with the bar review a few months after moving in that I only had time one morning to mow my grass. I gave it some fertilizer and left town for a week. The grass exploded as the rain continued to fall. Mine remained fine, but the common area of the HOA appeared lengthy. The day I got home, I mowed it and received a hand-delivered letter from the HOA that evening along with a fine. Even though it was mowed, they still delivered it after approaching. I used that wonderful opportunity to tell them that I'd been taking care of their property and that it was their property that they were fining me for. I also included a bill for all the water, fertilizer, and labor that went into maintaining it. They called me a few days later after talking to council and offered to just deed me the land. In 2005, my dad attempted to construct a large steel shop. When the D of a president came over and gave us a list of rules we were breaking, I remember him finishing up the dirty work. He mentioned that the shop could not be taller than our house, it could not be larger than the house, and its color had to match the house's. My father contended that none of those terms applied to the shop owner by our neighbor next door. My father made several requests to have it built. Approximately 90% of the neighbors signed for him. With everyone's approval, aside from the president and vice president, we moved forward. They attempted to sue us and have it taken down after it was built. Since nothing had been heard about it since, I assume that nothing ever came of it. Bonus. To prevent his house and his house alone from flooding, the same president had to come pleading with all the neighbors to use four-wheelers to break the ice in the drainage ditch behind the development. Dad and the others all said no. In the end, we let him perspire for a while. Couple hours passed, my friends and I took off. After a few hours, we broke it up, sparing him thousands of dollars in flood damage. Not even a thank you for that one. If you want to watch the part 1, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. Very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.